Accel World vs. Sword Art Online asks a lot of its audience. It's a game that features not one, but two separate franchises, complete with their own mythology, terminology, and cast of characters mashed together in a single adventure. Not to mention adapting the systems of both series into a similar set of mechanics. But surprisingly, Versus neatly wraps its burgeoning concept with competent delivery. Or to put it plainly, good enough. Now sure, there's a spark of imagination between the functional combat and serviceable story, but these opportunities are left untouched so far in my 14-hour playthrough. And unless a drastic shift in plot urgency and interactive depth occurs later on, there's simply not enough here beyond the premise to entice diehard fans or curious onlookers. In the year 2026, multiplayer virtual reality games have established a new kind of society, with Accel Online being one of the most advanced. When a strange shadow appears in the digital sky, the mischievous persona Babel captures you, a beloved artificial intelligence. Eager to rescue their friend, the players set off to discover the source of Babel's power. However, they're not alone, as the visitors from the game Brainburst have also traveled to the world of Accel. Now working together, the heroes will face off against the Kings of Pure Color to defeat Babel and restore virtual order. It's clear from the get-go, Versus is intended for fans already familiar with each brand's backstory, but brief explanations do give just enough insight into how these online civilizations function. However, it's unfortunate the characters don't receive the same treatment. With the exception of the skull-wearing, motorcycle-riding Ash Roller, the numerous characters don't express much personality, and none seem to follow basic logic. Early on, it's revealed that Brainburst takes place in the year 2047, 21 years in the future. But this mention of time travel is quickly glossed over for playful conversation and dry exposition. And that's the real issue. The narrative is more concerned with lining up recognizable faces in the same picture than addressing the fascinating circumstances that brought them together. Even then, it's half-hearted, as Accel World's villains are artificial copies of ghost data rather than the genuine characters. Versus' plot is far too simple, achieving the bare minimum necessary for this crossover while ignoring its most interesting elements. And in many ways, this story creates impossible expectations for the gameplay. We're led to believe Accel Online is so compelling, players are willing to devote lengthy periods of their lives, when in reality, Versus comes off as a fairly standard hack and slash. Replicating the feel of a massively multiplayer online RPG, players are able to perform light and heavy attacks. But the real focus is on the special moves and magical abilities, which each come with their own cooldown timer before they can be activated. These powers are meant to be used as often as possible, gradually leveling up through successful attacks. While not altogether complex, smashing monsters into bits of code is an empowering thrill. Staying true to its name, the roster features dozens of playable characters, which can be placed in teams of 3, complete with their unique movesets and weapon preferences. But there's a noticeable dip in quality outside the basic melee combat. Motorcycle riding, missile launches, and arrows are neat in theory, but their limited functionality makes their inclusion unnecessary. Versus does a good job of merging both universes' playstyles with appreciable differences. Sword Art heroes are able to exchange their weapons and armor, and can freely soar through the air in their hover and flight modes, while Brainburst fighters are more set in stone with powerful strikes and chargeable jumps. Customizing your preferred trio pays off, as players can quickly change their selected characters to use their powers or continue a devastating combo in a switch attack. But as interesting as these mechanics are, the level design and mission structure never capitalize on their potential. Versus environments are as empty as they are gigantic, with floating islands and mountains that only lead to the next dungeon, which themselves are just big square paths. There's a small attempt to liven up exploration with time challenges and puzzles, but these too come down to straightforward goals of pressing buttons. Even the best qualities of the combat fall apart as the difficulty ramps up. Later enemies remain just as dumb as before, they just have larger health bars, while nimble bosses fling themselves outside of the lock-on camera. Frankly, it feels like padding. Versus shows plenty of promise early on with its team and ability-based combat, but before long the overly simple activities and general advancement is eroded by bland, time-consuming versions of the exact same objectives. Without a much-needed increase in mission complexity, the campaign quickly slips into tedium. Online versions of boss battles as well as player versus player modes are also available, though the limited player base didn't allow me to fully explore these features. Versus presentation shares a lot of the uneven attributes of the story and gameplay. The 3D models generally look good with an imaginative cartoon style, but they often clash with the dry textures of their geometrical surroundings. Cutscenes are done in a 2D presentation, which feature the well-performed voice acting of the Japanese cast, but the creepy blinking eyes of stone-faced characters becomes unnerving. It's a shame these drawings don't display more expression. The music, on the other hand, is bursting with personality, with a soundtrack comprised of screaming electric guitars, cheerful acoustic folk, and tranquil drum and bass techno. So, is it worth it? No. Accel World vs. Sword Art Online feels like a rough draft to a far more ambitious game. Merging virtual dimensions through time travel is an amazing premise, but it's sadly underserved as simple moments of surface-level cultural exchange and exposition. Likewise, the enormous selection of playable characters invites experimentation, but without diverse events or missions, it's hard to appreciate the differences. Time and time again, Versus' flat execution undercuts exciting ideas into a generic, forgettable experience. Accel World vs. Sword Art Online is currently available on the PlayStation 4 for $60 and the PlayStation Vita for $40. If you've had a chance to play it, let me know what you thought, and if you haven't, let me know if you plan on picking it up. My name is Colin Tanner, and I'll see you in the next video.